request is that everybody, all drivers out there, please avoid driving into those flooded areas. If you see standing water or the barricades, do not try to go through it. That's the message coming from our officials this morning.
You know, everybody can help us with not driving into high water. That tends to be one of our biggest problems here is vehicles in high water during flooding events. And so we encourage people not to drive into the high water. And if we get into a situation where there's high water and flooding, stay where you're at. You're safe where you're at. And if you feel like your life is in danger at your location, the action is to call 911.
And one more live look, again, inbound 45 in the downtown area. We're getting a little bit of a break from that rain, but of course we're in for more weather over the next several hours, so be safe and be prepared. Charlie, Ed City, ABC 13, Eyewitness News.
And Charlie, you've actually started running into rain, what, about 5 o'clock this morning?
Yeah, that's when it really started to pick up. It was quiet, I would say between 4:30 and 5:30. And once we got past that 5:30 half hour mark, that's when we started to see things really pick up. And there were some pretty heavy pockets of rain that we went into on the freeway. So again, we know the weather around here is unpredictable. So please just drive with care and get prepared now so you're not caught off guard.
Yeah, and we've seen our fair share of slowdowns as well this morning. Lots of flashing lights out there in different spots of Houston. So, Charlie, we'll let you get back to it. You be safe out there as well on the roads.
Meanwhile, down in Galveston, preparations already underway in advance of the storm.
ABC 13's Courtney Carpenter live for us off the seawall, where we have seen the current getting a lot stronger out there.
Hey, good morning, guys. Yeah, finally seeing some rain here throughout the whole morning. Just some sprinkles, but just moments ago, there's actually some pretty good wind gusts coming through. So things definitely changing out here. Now you can see some crews have been out here working this morning. There's some big posts they have here. They also took down a lifeguard stand earlier today, just getting it out of the way ahead of this storm. You know, if you've lived down here for a while, you know how important it is to get prepared and stay prepared throughout this time. Mark Morgan, the emergency management coordinator for the city of Galveston, is reminding everyone the importance of making sure your property is secured ahead of this storm.
Right now, if you live in a low-lying area out on the west end, we're going to have coastal flooding and with the tides. So just be aware, pick up things outside. If you have property, you don't live on the island, please come to the island and secure your properties. We want to make sure that those properties are secured in the event that we have something stronger than presently predicted.
The city is also talking about going ahead to put out road barricades where they know it's going to flood. So that's kind of things that they're working on this morning. We've seen several people out here just walking around, coming to check out how things are. But really just in the past 10 minutes or so is when we're actually seeing some rain out here. Guys, reporting live in Galveston, Courtney Carpenter, ABC 13 Eyewitness News.
And Courtney, with the sun coming up, you can get a better look yourself of just how much action is going on with those waves behind you.
Yes, exactly. Obviously so tough to see in the dark. Really can only see back there at the fishing pier, but now that it's brighter, just a few moments ago, we were actually seeing the shower come towards us, kind of seeing those dark clouds moving this way. So certainly easier to see. And like I said, a lot more people just getting up and coming out to see what this storm is going to do and what it's looking like so far.
Yeah, it's a big attraction for many folks, as we've seen in the past, right? They head down there, they want to check out the waves. Some folks want to hit the waves. Other people just want to get their picture. Just be safe no matter what. Right, Courtney?
Exactly. There was a guy out here who said he lives here for 39 years. He's a surfer. He was just out here grabbing his breakfast, going to get some tacos, and then going to check out the waves. But he was saying, you know, he's been around this for a long time, but was still encouraging folks, pay attention to the warnings and stay inside. Obviously, don't go drive around in this. Certainly be careful, even if you're used to it. We know a lot of people down here are, but you still want to be careful. Don't get yourself in any sort of trouble.
All right, thanks, Courtney. And we have meteorologist with Harris County Flood Control District, Jeff Linder. He's one of the directors of the flood operations down there. He's on the line right now. Good morning, Jeff.
Yeah, hi, Jeff. Rita Garcia and Jeff Ealing here with you. So let's just start from square one. How is the city and how is the county preparing for Nicholas?
You know, most of the preparations have been underway since even Friday, and it's really just the activation day of the emergency operations centers at both the city and the county, and then the deployment of resources across the area, and of course barricades. And as you had in your story there, make sure that if you do see barricades up, you don't drive around those. And be very careful as we get into this afternoon and tonight, and then especially tomorrow morning for those high water locations, especially at underpasses. We know those underpasses can accumulate a lot of water. That's typically where we see some of our big problem areas here when we get some heavy rains.
It looked like the storm started to slow down a bit, Jeff. How concerned are you about that?
I'm not overly concerned about any type of stalling or slow motions. You know, it's going to come up tonight and move across the area. It's going to be a good 24, 30-hour period that we're going to be having some adverse conditions here in Southeast Texas, especially the Houston, Galveston area, and really focusing those areas down toward the coastal areas for the biggest rainfall. But really tonight, we're going to have to watch very carefully as we start to get some of those higher rainfall rates. Not only the street flooding potential, but the potential for significant rises on our creek and bayou system.
Yeah, and Jeff, you know, one of the big issues that we've seen in the past when it comes to heavy rainfall, things like this, Nicholas, what we're about to experience is going to be those high water locations and keeping folks off the road, right?
Very important tonight. You know, once you get home this afternoon, this evening, you need to really stay in place through the duration of this event. So tonight and even potentially into tomorrow morning and see how this plays out. But really, you know, 5, 6, 7 o'clock this evening, get home and stay there for the night because conditions are going to be deteriorating and could become dangerous out there as we go into the evening and overnight hours.
It looks like some areas might get, what, up to 20 inches of rain or more?
It's possible that we could see some isolated areas, especially down in the coastal areas, Galveston, Brazoria County, Chambers County, upwards of 15 to 20 inches in isolated spots. Widespread 5 to 10 inches across the areas is kind of what we're thinking right now, with most of the heaviest rainfall kind of focused south of I-10. That's the area we're most worried about at this time.
So, Jeff, the other thing you mentioned is that the Emergency Operations Center clearly went into effect. You all started operating this morning at 6 a.m. And you mentioned resources, barricades, that kind of thing. Tell us a little bit more about what that looks like. What do you all do behind the scenes? You said it started on Friday.
Yeah, you know, it's been a lot of coordination over the weekend, a lot of conference calls. Of course, you know, what's the storm going to do? Where is it going to move? A lot of uncertainty on when it was going to form. Going into during the weekend time period. And we started to get some of those answers yesterday afternoon when we saw the center kind of form, and now moving up the coast. And even still, you know, this morning, there's still some uncertainty on where exactly some of this
All right, Jeff,
heavy
we're
rain falls.
let's put you on pause for just 1 second. We're going to do a Good Morning America weather cut in. We'll be right back with you. Don't go anywhere, though.
All right, 7:19 on this Monday morning. It's all about Nicholas, Tropical Storm Nicholas, 60-mile-per-hour winds. Already starting to see weather conditions deteriorating, especially along the coastline. Coastal communities, most of you under a tropical storm warning, but there are some hurricane watches along the immediate coast. Notice this plume of moisture continuing to stream in. This is all ahead of its landfall. Nicholas will make landfall sometime later on tonight, right along the coastline of Matagorda. I'll have the latest track coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, let's rejoin our conversation with meteorologist Jeff Lindner with Harris County Flood Control. Jeff, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but we had to hit that cut in. Tell us a little bit about, kind of reset what you were talking about as far as, you know, what we can expect this morning.
Yeah, you know, again, these bands of rain are going to be coming in, moving inland from the coast. We've seen a couple of them this morning. You're going to get some brief heavy rainfall, and then it's going to move on, and you're going to get a break, and then you get another band to come in. And that's really how today is going to go. As we get into this afternoon, this evening, those bands will increase in both intensity and in frequency. And so that is when our flood threat begins to go up as we get into late this afternoon. And then especially tonight, when we get more of that consistent heavy rainfall and those higher rainfall rates, they'll be moving into the area from the south and southwest.
So, Jeff, the other thing is we have a lot of our streamers this morning who are very familiar with Houston, very familiar with these type of events. But talk to those who may be here, who may have evacuated from the Louisiana area and who are still here because they can't go home. And this is going to be their first time. And some folks who are new to Houston as well from different parts of the country. I know we talked to one woman who said, I guess I need to start preparing now. She'd never been through this. So what can you tell those folks?
Never been through this. So what can you tell those folks?
Yeah, I think the preparations, like several of these storms we've been through here, are going to mainly be on the water side of things, on the flood potential side of things. I can't rule out some scattered or isolated power outages as we go into tonight and tomorrow. So it's always good to have uh, 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 products and everything in place for the type of power outages. I don't expect them to be long lasting, but you could lose power. That is a possibility. The bigger threat is the flood threat, and when we start talking about flooding, a lot of people park their cars on the street overnight. Now, tonight is not a good night to park your car on the street. Get it up in the driveway, take it to a parking lot, take it to higher ground somewhere, because street flooding is likely tonight. And then we're going to have to monitor the creeks and the bayous, especially those creeks and the bayous south of I-10, where we think we'll get some of the heavier rainfall. So monitor those closely. We could have overbank flooding on our creeks and bayous tonight, and we could have structured flooding in Harris County or Galveston County or Brazoria County. And so you need to be paying attention tonight to the rainfall, to those rainfall rates, and the rising water in the area.
Yeah, I think the ultimate takeaway is, like you said, Jeff, wherever you are tonight when you get home from work, that's where you should probably stay put until Wednesday morning. So thank you so much for your insight. We, of course, will be in close contact. We'll stay close, and we'll talk to you again later.
Now we got a live look outside, getting ready for another look at your forecast. We'll be right back.
Now an ABC 13 Eyewitness News update.
Hey, good morning from Galveston. Not raining at the moment, but certainly some rain just moments ago, and some stronger winds. Now that it's bright, you can see kind of how things are looking out here. There have been crews going up and down the beach preparing for the really all morning long. Not that long ago, there were some crews out here removing one of the lifeguard stands ahead of the storm. The county, of course, ready with their high water rescue vehicles. There are going to be barricades set up for those high water spots. One woman we spoke to earlier, she was out for a morning run, so she's been doing some extra preps, as this will be her first storm in her new house. And I guess, are you glad? I mean, obviously it could be worse, but you're still taking it seriously, right?
Yeah, because you never know what could happen, right? It's weather, so it could end up being not a big deal, but it could be a huge thing. So I'm trying to make sure we have everything that we need.
Hey, being prepared is the way to go, and that's what we've heard from people who've lived here for a long time, who've weathered a lot of storms down here, are still encouraging folks, hey, be prepared and then stay home whenever this rain starts to get more intense. But as you can see, wind certainly picking up here in Galveston now. Reporting live in Galveston, Courtney Carpenter, ABC 13 Eyewitness News.
All right, Tropical Storm Nicholas moving over some very, very warm waters. Right now, really hard to see the definition of the center of circulation, but regardless, notice that plume of moisture is heading in our direction. It is moving slower now toward the north-northwest at 5 miles per hour. It should pick up its forward motion as it makes landfall this evening somewhere along the coastline of Matagorda Bay and then continue to track toward the north and northeast. Here's the moisture continuing to push across our area. The worst of that rain, the worst of that wind will be moving later on tonight during the overnight hours. So now you need to be prepared and make sure that you complete all those preparations before the sun goes down.
Our tower cam here at ABC 13 Studios pointing towards downtown. Very dark outside. We just wrapped up a conversation, Rita, with Jeff Lindner over at Harris County Flood Control, and I think a couple of key takeaways from him. One, he's talking about, you're going to be able to get to work today, but today's not the day to stay late at work, right?
Right.
Leave as soon as you can, get back home, and then just prepare to stay home Tuesday.
Right, and then, hopefully we'll be able to resume things on Wednesday, but we'll see because things can obviously change. One of the other things he said is tonight is not a good night to park your car on the street because street flooding is likely. So he's going to be monitoring the creeks and the bayous as well, or the city and the county will, of course. So anyway, some key takeaways.
And I know a lot of people are new to our area, that maybe they haven't gone through this before. The old veterans, crusty old folks like me, we know where to park our cars, right? But if you're new to the area and you don't know, maybe ask your neighbor, hey, is this a good spot? Because so many times people will say to us, if I'd only known that I could have gotten my car to higher ground, I would have. And these things come on so quickly. I remember doing a couple of stories down in Mayoral where, a guy literally had gone to visit his friend, starts raining, says, well, I'll just spend the night here, gets out the next morning and car gone. There's just wiped out, so make sure you talk to people around your neighborhood, people who've been here for a while.
Right. Okay. So I know my first year, you actually just sparked a memory. I had parked right on the street and I was right in front of a storm drain. Well, we had some heavy rainfall and the storm drain hadn't been cleaned out. So unfortunately the water came up instead of drain.
Right.
And so anyway, half of the vehicle on the passenger side was flooded, which it was not fun.
Right.
It smelled for like 5 days.
Oh, no, absolutely.
And I couldn't get in because everybody was in the same sort of situation that, when you took your vehicle in, you've got all sorts of delays and you got to wait because, they're backed up as well. So just a couple things that you definitely want to take note of.
Because of so much new construction going on, and it doesn't really matter where you are in town, like I know you're in Edo, and there's a lot of new construction going on around there, even on the southwest side where I am, a lot of construction happening. You just don't know what's going on with those storm drains. You just don't know if your neighborhood has always been safe, never flooded during this storm or that storm. Sometimes you just can't compare these two, storms from one to the other because you just don't know what's going on. A lot of things can change over the course of a year or so, and so just be careful of that as well.
Be respectful of barricades as well. We know that crews are out there putting them up in those potential flood zones and all that jazz. Charlie Edsity was telling us about that. What you want to do is not drive around it, right? Just heed all those warnings and just respect the barriers.
Oh, absolutely. And we've done stories before where people have gone around the barricades, especially in the middle of the night. Midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. You really can't see. The depth perception really isn't there at that hour. If you go around some of those barricades, the road will drop 12 feet. And so you'll be completely inundated, and we've had, unfortunately done stories where people have lost their lives. All right, so Tropical Storm Nicholas is moving fast, so the time to prepare, again, it is right now.
Let's check in with Bree Berry. She's live for us in Southwest Houston with what you need to know. Bree.
Hey, good morning. I do want to touch on, you were just talking about there's some people who are new to the area, haven't experienced this. I actually talked to one of those people filling up her tank earlier this morning. And so after the interview, I felt like I had to kind of give her a rundown of everything she needed to know. So hopefully that helped. But the biggest thing I told her is now is when you need to go out and make sure you have everything you need in that hurricane preparedness kit, storm preparedness kit, whatever you want to call it. Just make sure you have those items. So let's touch briefly on a couple of those, whether you're, a veteran like Jeff or you're new to the area. So a couple recommended things are some personal protective equipment, prescription medication. You want to have extra clothing, also pillows and blankets if you have to go to a shelter, stay somewhere. Hygiene supplies are important, and a digital copy of important documents. I made sure I shared that one with her. And then, of course, don't forget to bring some of those extra items for family members who have unique needs. So we're talking about kids. You might need diapers or wipes, toys. And then for your pets, don't forget about them. You need to make sure they have their medication and an extra supply for food. But at this gas station we've been at, it is starting to rain, and people have been, showing up, filling up some extra gas cans, just trying to be prepared.
You always have a concern with the weather, but you kind of adapt and you get used to it. Now, it doesn't mean that you should not stay vigilant and alert.
Yeah, this is something we see probably more often than we'd like to, but we know how to deal with it and we can stay safe and work through it, yeah.
Yeah, and part of staying safe, right, is being prepared. So also just a reminder, the Red Cross is setting up shelters in the event that we need that all along the Gulf Coast. So it's not a bad idea to kind of have an idea of where some of those are in the event you need that. But do remember, COVID is still a factor. So needing to wear a mask is something important in the shelters. They're requiring that of staff and all residents. And, you know, we've talked to a couple people, obviously just heading off to work like you mentioned. But, you know, if you have maybe on your lunch break some time, go ahead and get some of those items if you think maybe you might be missing it out of your kit. It's best to do that now. And our meteorologists have been giving us tons of information, but one of the things that I've held on to and I'm sharing with people out here is wherever you are this afternoon or this evening, that's where you'll likely have to stay. So just make sure you have everything you need in that location. I'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
Yeah, Bree, we were talking about that. You know, if you're going to work this morning, and a lot of people are,
yeah,
now's not the time to, you know, maybe put in a couple of extra hours, you know, after 5 o'clock. Go ahead and go home. Right?
Yeah, well, hopefully the boss is watching too and understands that.
That's a good point. Yeah, I am telling some people, I had one of the girls ask me out here, you know, so when do you think that I should head out of town? She has a trip she has to take. I said, honestly, if you can do it maybe this morning or early morning time frame, I think that would just be best, because if there are people trying to get home from work, you know, we know traffic, how that can be. So you don't want to be on the roadways this afternoon into this evening.
Yeah, and I know so many people want to know, like, is it going to rain, you know, be really bad in my neighborhood? Well, you know, the natures of these storms, well, I can't tell you yes or no, and I certainly wouldn't say no with the storm breathing down our neck, right? And you know, places that are you know, new construction and things like that maybe not have experience with this kind of thing. So there's a lot of question marks when the storm comes our way.
Yeah, and I think too, new construction, Jeff, a good point about that is as they're building, you know, maybe you don't really know, depending on, you know, how new everything is or where stuff is being put up, exactly how your neighborhood will react, how well those storm drains are, you know, set up. So it's probably just always best, as I talked to one guy, he said, just always best to be prepared, because he says he's suspicious and he thinks him buying the generator kept his power on. So he's getting prepared to hopefully have this storm just pass us by. I like his suspicion. I'll take it.
Yes.
You know, Bree, you also brought up a really good point about travel. People might be catching a flight today, later on in the evening. Maybe now's the time to call the airline and just make sure they have a contingency plan, because many folks might get stuck at the airport or might not be able to get there, as we've seen in the past.
Yes.
It floods around the airport.
That's right. That's right.
Both of them. So
that is a good point. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll talk to you again later, Bree. Thank you so much for the reminder. And you're right. Maybe take the lunch break, take full advantage and go get some of those supplies just in case.
All right. Let's check in with meteorologist Alita Loresco. So many question marks. What's going to happen with this storm? I know you've got as many answers as you possibly can.
Yeah, there's a list of all the different impacts that we can expect, and meteorologist Kevin Roth is going to help me with that. But first, let me give you the latest from the National Hurricane Center. In case you're just joining us, before 7 o'clock this morning, the latest intermediate advisory is out. No big changes here as far as the intensity of the storm, although you can see the showers and thunderstorms are still firing up to the north and northeast where the center of circulation is. And by the way, the center of circulation and the tropical storm force winds extending from the center over 115 miles. So right now the storm itself, the eye of the storm, is less than 200 miles away from Matagorda Bay. And so this system, as it continues to approach, we're going to start feeling those tropical storm force winds this afternoon and evening. So it is going to be quick for these conditions to deteriorate. It is moving slower than where we were earlier this morning, now toward the north and northwest at about 5 miles per hour. The latest forecast cone still points it to making landfall this evening, sometime around 7 o'clock this evening, approaching the coastline here of Matagorda Bay, and then continuing to track toward the north, where eventually, I think Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, it starts to make that curve toward the north and east, raining itself out and also weakening to a tropical depression. But as I mentioned, we've got just a swath of moisture sitting offshore that's already beginning to push onshore. These are the type of rains that are going to saturate the grounds, and with more rain off in the distance to the south, it's going to start piling up, and we're going to start to see those problems developing along the coastline over the next several hours. These are the type of rains moving over the same areas that could produce anywhere between 3 to 4 inches per hour. hour. That's why meteorologist Jeff Lindner said those areas south of I-10, those watersheds are going to need monitoring, especially as we get into the overnight hours, and why we are telling you that by the time the sun sets, you should be hunkered down to where you plan on staying the night, because the rains are not going to stop. Once we get that leading edge of rain to move onshore, that wave of rain is just going to continue to fill further up to the north. So those of you on the north side of town, you may be able to buy a couple of hours after the sun sets before you want to hunker down, because once we get past 8, 9, 10 o'clock or so, those rains will be ongoing. It may not be until the overnight hours, let's say 1, 2, 3 o'clock Tuesday morning, where some of that rain starts to let up. And then by Tuesday morning, we're still talking about a tropical storm here. The wind speeds here still about 40, 50 miles per hour. So that's still going to have some impacts for those of you that are trying to maybe head out thinking, hey, you know what? It's dry now. Maybe I can get out there. Remember, there still could be some debris flying around, debris that got knocked down from, or even tree limbs or other type of flying objects that got, thrown around due to the winds overnight. So just be prepared. Tuesday morning, it'd still be fairly dicey out there, but the majority of the wind, the majority of the rain should be tapering off as we get into Tuesday night. A flash flood watch is in effect through Tuesday evening, and we're still talking about some very high rainfall amounts. We talk about watches. The flash flood watches isn't the only type of advisories out there. Here with more on the watches and warnings, and of course for our coastal communities, that storm surge, meteorologist Kevin Roth.
Yeah, Alita, it is the flooding that we're primarily concerned with, right? Most of us need to be worried about that potential for some heavy rains and some flooding rains, but that's not the only concern. This system will be bringing some potent winds as well. And because of that, we actually have hurricane watches in effect for parts of the area. That's coastal Brazoria, Matagorda, and Jackson counties, where we have a hurricane watch. Could see winds of 74 miles per hour or stronger. Wind gusts are possible there. Now, most of us are under these tropical storm watches and warnings. The difference at this point between the watches and warnings not too significant. That's more so a timing issue. What matters is that you're talking winds here moving in that could be in excess of 39 to 73 miles per hour. Could see some spotty power outages with that as well. And if you look at the tropical storm force wind probabilities here, you'll notice right around Houston, that I-10 corridor, right about a 50% chance of seeing those tropical storm force winds. As you head farther to the south and west, those chances of seeing tropical storm force winds go up. Sugar Land, 60%, Angleton, 60%, Wharton, 70%. And by the time you head to areas like Bay City and Palacios, those tropical storm force wind gusts are very likely. We've got the winds. Yes, that's a concern. Of course, we mentioned the rain, but these winds are going to be coming here out of the south and east around this system. And what that means is that we're going to be piling up that water as well. So we have to talk about the storm surge. And right now, if you look at some of the storm surge for Galveston Bay, you're talking 2 to 4 feet. That stretches all the way into Louisiana and ends there at the San Luis Pass. From the San Luis Pass out through Matagorda Bay, 3 to 5 feet of storm surge as well. You remember, these winds here with this system are going to be going around the center of circulation, which will be here. So those winds go around it, and you're piling up that water with those winds. 3 to 5 feet of storm surge in some of these coastal areas. It's those same coastal areas that could see some of the heaviest of the rain as well. So when you start adding in the rain and the storm surge and the winds, really a significant threat here, especially for those coastal locations. But as Alita has been saying and mentioning, that rain could extend well north of Houston, and that is the primary concern for the vast majority of the area. Alita.
Yeah, I mean, you're drawing it perfectly. I mean, Kevin, if you look at the projected rainfall totals, right in that box that you highlighted from Houston northward, we're still talking 5 to 10 inches of rain. And for those low-lying spots, you're talking more than just, the streets getting flooded. There could be some front porches flooded. There could be some rapid rises in some of those watersheds. And of course, south of I-10, where we're going to see those rainfall totals stacking up, we're still anticipating over 15 inches of rain in some spots. Those of you north north and west of Houston, maybe 1 to 4 inches of rain. So the likelihood of you seeing any sort of flash flooding is actually minimal. Now, really quick, I want to show you some of these future wind gusts. Kevin already showed you the percentage, so I want to give you a different visual to show you where we are headed. I think the majority of the morning, during the afternoon hours, at least for the first part of the afternoon, we're talking maybe 20, 30 mile per hour gusts. Those of you obviously along the coastline will start to feel the impacts of those tropical storm force winds as that center of circulation makes landfall somewhere around Matagorda County. Right now, these computer models are basically tracking 70 mile per hour gusts. Those of you just to the east and to the north of the system where we're talking about the dirty side, the high impact side, we're talking maybe 40, 50 mile per hour gusts in Angleton, Sugar Land. Now, these are the type of wind gusts that's going to move around debris. So if you haven't already, you've got a few hours to go out there and secure any sort of loose items that you might have. I was just on a FaceTime call with my husband. I told him, make sure you put all of our, outdoor furniture, the lighter stuff. We have some very light outdoor furniture. Our barbecue is pretty lightweight. I said, put that in the garage, just because we don't need that to be wafted, anywhere or even in the pool. We're looking at these strong winds continuing to push to the north. So out in Katy, northwest side of Harris County, or Houston, we're talking 40, 50 mile per hour gusts there, and still talking about 60 mile per hour gusts down toward Angleton. So these strong winds could be several hours before they finally start to weaken. And then as that storm system continues to track toward the north and northeast, those winds on the backside should slowly start to taper off. But east and to the north of that system, they're expected to continue to increase. So Woodville, the Livingston area, by Tuesday morning, we're going to be clocking wind gusts anywhere between 40 to 50 miles per hour. Really, it won't be until the afternoon hours when we start to get those winds gusting below 20 miles per hour. So I know there's a lot going on. I think the bottom line, your takeaway from this, you've got a few more hours, especially along the coastline, where you really need to get those preparations finalized, because those rains will only get harder. Those rainfall totals will only be stacking up. And by the time the sun goes down, you want to be hunkered down. You don't want to be out there on the roads trying to get to where you need to be. So by 7, 8 o'clock or so, you want to be in place, and then make sure that you're able to stay there with all your supplies at least until late Tuesday night into Wednesday. I think by Wednesday morning, most of us should be in the clear, with our computer models being a little bit more progressive in the rain exiting our area. And we'll be fine-tuning the forecast, possibly dropping some of these rain chances, at least for the Wednesday and Thursday timeframe. But just know we've got a very active next 24 to 36 hour period, guys.
That's going to keep you busy. You've been doing great work all morning long since before 4:30 this morning.
Yeah.
You have really been bringing us a lot of great information, you and Kevin Roth as well.
Yeah. It's so nice to have, somebody, we feed off of each other, and our thinking. Obviously, we get the analysis from the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service, but we also do our own analysis behind the scenes, and it's always nice to kind of, ping pong back and forth to see if we're on the same page. And so this morning is just one of those mornings. It's nice to have a pal, a friend.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you're also taking, all of your pals on social media. You're taking their questions. So
Yes.
props to you to watch the radar, do everything you need to do in here and online. So thanks, Alita.
Great job. We got a live look at the roads this morning. We got the East Freeway outbound. Feeder Road is closed. The on-ramp at Cedar was closed a little earlier, but it's reopened now. You can see traffic a little slow in that area. Quite a few cars there on the Feeder Road. So just keep that in mind if you're headed out this morning. Not just there, but really everywhere around our coverage area. Give yourself lots of extra time. Meanwhile, Houston city officials very closely monitoring the track of Tropical Storm Nicholas.
No surprise here. The big issue is going to be the flash flooding. Officials in Houston and Harris County are asking drivers to be careful on the roads from now until Wednesday, but they're going to be out placing barriers today at those known flooding hotspots.
Everybody can help us with not driving into high water. That tends to be one of our biggest problems here, is vehicles in high water during flooding events. And so we encourage people not to drive into the high water. And if we get into a situation where there's high water and flooding, stay where you're at. You're safe where you're at. And if you feel like your life is in danger at your location, the action is to call 911.
You know, you saw the video there. It was file video, wasn't live
Of what
video.
we've seen in the
What
past,
we've seen in the past. You know, if that was your SUV, we're sorry, but look, everybody else who owns an SUV, don't be that guy, right? I mean, right there, you get into trouble because that's obviously an underpass. The water's very deep. You don't understand how deep it is until you get right there in the middle of it, and by then it's too late. And we've seen this happen, Rita, over and over and over again. That's a different vehicle.
Yes, we have. You know, and I think the scary part too is the time that we come in the morning. You know, it's very early. It's really difficult to see if that's water or the reflection on the roads. I don't know about you, but that's what often happens to me. As I'm looking close and I'm like, I don't know if that's water, if that's the reflection, if that's just, you know, the moonlight glistening off of the street. I'm not sure. So, you know, I guess your best bet is just turn around, don't drown, don't even go through there if you even anticipate it.
I mean, we say it all the time. People kind of laugh at us sometimes when we say that, but you know, it really is true. The person who drove that vehicle probably had no idea that they were going to be going, you know, 3 feet of water, you know, because it just doesn't look that way, right? You see that shot right there, you think, oh, it's just a straight shot, it's going to be fine. But no, it continues to go down, and you won't know that, especially at night. You just won't know it.
No, you won't know that at all. So just a heads up, you don't want to be that person.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
So schools are already closing ahead of Tropical Storm Nicholas.
Yeah, quite a few. The list is getting longer and longer by the minute. Fort Bend ISD dismissing early today, and then they're going to be closed tomorrow.
We're also learning Alvin, Danbury, Pearland ISD adding their names to their growing list. Currently, we've got it for you. Angleton, Brazosport, Clear Creek, Dickinson, Friendswood, Hitchcock, LaPorte, Pasadena, Santa Fe is on the list. Sweeney, Texas City ISD, all of them have canceled classes for today. Fort Bend will dismiss early. Galveston ISD will also close early. Elementary students will be released at about 11:30 in the morning, middle and high school at 12:15. And for the very latest list of some school closures, you can head to our website where we're updating it, abc13.com, or you can always check the ABC13 app, which hopefully you've downloaded it by now.
Yeah, and don't forget, daycares, private schools often will follow the lead of like HISD. So if HISD closes, obviously we will certainly let you know that if that takes place. But you know, if you've got kids in daycare, you know, maybe little kids, you know, this can be very, very difficult for parents. Do I take them there? Do I not take them there? Right, exactly.
Maybe now's the time to say, hey, you know, can I work from home tomorrow?
Precisely. All right, so Mayor Sylvester Turner is warning Houstonians, please, please don't let your guard down. I know it's a tropical storm, but these can be very powerful.
Yeah, those are actually his words, right? Despite Nicholas only being a tropical storm, it can still do some heavy damage. Listen to this.
Just because you don't hear hurricane, it could be a system developing in the Gulf, and what we have seen, these systems can really accelerate very, very quickly. And what may appear to be, for example, 1 inch of rain could easily be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or more.
So with that, Mayor Turner stresses the city is prepared, but wants all Houstonians to stay safe and weather aware over the next several days.
And right on cue, we did get an update from HISD saying that they are going to remain open today. They're going to continue to monitor the situation, keep assessing the situation. If anything changes, they'll be the first to put it out on social media. And of course, we will, of course, bring it to you as breaking news as well.
Yeah, so follow along for those updates. Okay, because of the storm, Harris County is closing all of its testing and vaccination sites.
Yeah, so that starts today. The county says they will continue to monitor the weather and will announce later when those sites will in fact start to reopen.
And also ahead of the storm's arrival, the Harris County Precinct 4 Constable's Office also preparing for the possibility of flooding. They are deploying all high water rescue equipment and personnel across their area. The message from Precinct 4, they're ready to help. And if you're driving and you see high water, I said it once, we'll say it again, turn around, don't drown.
It's the best advice out there. At 9 o'clock this morning, we expect to learn more about storm preparations that are currently underway and going to continue throughout the day down in Fort Bend County.
Yeah, so the county judge there, KP George, says he's going to provide an update on what we can expect over the next several days, and that the county is working with Homeland Security and emergency management to keep residents safe during heavy rain and flooding.
And with all eyes on the Gulf places that are prone to flooding, like Galveston Island, preparing for whatever tropical storm Nicholas might bring for you.
Let's take a live picture now at the Galveston seawall. Look at that. We can actually see clearly now, right? So it looks like some of those raindrops have cleared up on the camera lens. And of course, it's, I would say clear skies, but not so much, right? It's kind of gloomy out there.
Yes.
No, things look quiet for now, though, right? I'm a little surprised we don't see more and more people out there on the beach. The waves, though, are looking choppy, okay? So it's very dangerous. You definitely don't want to do that. Rain already moved into the Galveston area ahead of the storm. This is actually video showing that heavy rain last night. Galveston County emergency crews began staging those high water rescue vehicles at the critical locations yesterday. Our Steve Campion breaks down the preps along the coast.
As Old Glory and the Lone Star flag stood strong in Sunday's high winds, it didn't take long to spot crews on Galveston Island in storm prep.
It's really dark skies, really windy. I mean, the waves are up, but it's nice, warm, a little creepy.
We spoke with this couple from Arkansas celebrating 10 years of marriage. Others we caught up with didn't even realize Tropical Storm Nicholas is now churning in the Gulf.
I didn't even know about Tropical Storm Nicholas. I was really wondering why it was so windy outside, but I was still trying to enjoy my day at the beach. But hearing that there's a storm in the Gulf makes a lot of sense.
At the least, we're looking at a bunch of flooding around the island and in the areas adjacent to the island. And worst case, we're looking at potentially a Cat 1 hitting us, so we kind of want to be ready for the full gamut.
Chief Peter Davis leads Galveston Island Beach Patrol. He said flooding with any of these tropical storms remains the big concern.
If the tides are really high, which they may be in this situation, the drainage can take longer. And so, you can have pretty good flooding up there on the mainland, and it doesn't drain for a few days. Whereas on the island, you get 24 hours, it's going to drain off.
And you can tell weather's coming. It's not going to be pleasing, but you can tell we're going to have some heavy rains.
In Galveston, Steve Campion, 13 Eyewitness News.
All right, so we know Galveston's getting ready. Flood control folks are getting ready. State officials also getting ready for Tropical Storm Nicholas's arrival.
Governor Greg Abbott ordered the State Operations Center to increase to readiness level 2 starting this morning. So that means state resources are now on standby along the Gulf Coast from Beaumont to the Rio Grande Valley. They do include 6 swift water rescue boat squads from the Texas A&M Task Force 1, game warden boat teams, right, as well as 5 ground transportation platoons with high-profile vehicles from the Texas Military Department and medical task force teams as well. And as we prepare for Tropical Storm Nicholas, you're going to want to make sure that your storm supply kit is fully stocked.
Right, and we're talking about some basic supplies here, and that includes 1 gallon of water per person per day for 3 days, and you want to have at least a 3-day supply of non-perishable food on hand, and a can opener that you can run by hand. It doesn't take electricity. Make sure you know where your flashlight is, Rita. Make sure you know the flashlight and the extra batteries. Where's that box, right? You got to find it right now. Also, put together a bit of a first aid kit, and be sure to include medications that you take daily, because you just don't know. You might have to evacuate, and it's going to be hard to find all of those things. So have the medications in a first aid kit ready to go. And if you have pets, don't forget about them. They're going to need food and water as well, and their medications too. So don't leave those behind. You can see the full list. It can be exhaustive, but we've got the full list for you over on our website, abc13.com, and also some more hurricane safety tips. You can see that on abc13.com/hurricane, and of course prominently featured in the ABC 13 News app.
Speaking of, you definitely want to stay weather aware the next several days. You can watch our forecast no matter where you are by downloading our ABC 13 News app. You can check the radar. You can get all sorts of weather alerts sent straight to your phone. That's also where Alita and the rest of our weather team are going to be bringing you the very latest in terms of streaming updates as we continue to track Nicholas. And Jeff, as you pointed out, if the power goes out and the internet goes out, you're still able to stream, right, with a little bit of service that you can get.
If you've got one of those backup batteries that connects to your cell phone, make sure those are fully charged and ready to go. Those can be lifesavers, because I'm always on my phone and then the battery goes dead. I'm like, wait a minute, what do I do now?
Right, like a Mophie?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everybody in our house has one. And make sure last night I was plugging all my gadgets in to make sure they're all fully charged. So be sure to do that as well.
We've got the hotspot as well, right, just in case.
Yep.
Okay, so remember that we, of course, will keep you posted on all things Nicholas.
That's right. A couple of top stories, of course, the weather.
Right.
A big update on that coming up right after the break.
All right, 7:55 on this Monday morning. We continue to track Tropical Storm Nicholas. That center of circulation is still well offshore, but making its presence known. You can see the rain that continues to fall along our coastal communities. The surf continuing to look more choppy at this hour. Rain cooled this morning with temperatures in the upper 70s. Notice these bands of rain will be coming in waves, and at times could produce a quick 3 to 4 inches of rain. But I think the heaviest of that rain is going to fall later on this afternoon into the evening hours. Those rains are now spreading into the Piney Woods area. Notice this leading edge, the very long, elongated line of heavy rain that is spreading northward. This is going to be pushing northward over the next couple of hours. Its movement between 20 to 25 miles per hour. So putting you guys up in notice around the Needville, Victoria area, East Bernard. This is moving in your direction, hitting the areas like Cuero sometime after 9:30 this morning. But here is the system with our satellite and radar product. 60-mile-per-hour winds. Its movement, it's slowed down toward the north-northwest at about 5 miles per hour. It is going to approach the coastline this evening, hitting the coastline, making landfall right around Matagorda Bay, and then continuing to track further inland. It is expected to weaken. However, it is going to continue to drop some very heavy rain, some tropical storm force winds, even the potential for a weekend hurricane force winds along the coastline. We do have a hurricane watch in effect. So over the next 36 hours or so, those conditions are going to continue to deteriorate. Notice the shades of oranges, reds. These are the type of rains that could dump that quick 3 to 4 inches per hour. And as those rainfall totals continue to stack up, we're going to have to monitor some of the watersheds, especially south of I-10. Street flooding, obviously, going to be a huge issue. Those waters piling up along the coastline. And of course, that wave action along with that rain is going to create problems for the immediate coastline. But it does look like the system and the majority of that rain starts to exit our area by Tuesday night. That flash flood watch in effect through 7 o'clock tomorrow evening.
All right, folks, welcome back. Here's the Galveston camera. We love seeing Galveston at this time. Normally, we can check out of here and go on home, but we're not going to do that. We're going to stay on the air, at least for a little while longer, because we understand that at 8 o'clock this morning, Mayor Sylvester Turner is going to have a news conference. We're not exactly sure of the exact time of that, but hopefully we can stay on at least until that starts. You know, basically, he's just going to kind of tell us what we can expect with the city of Houston, with its preparations. One of the things I want to call your attention to is the surf out there. When we first got on the air around 4:30 this morning, didn't look too bad. But then as the storm started to get closer and, the morning started to unfold, it did seem to us like the surf was getting a lot more rough and picking up. And at some points was even going over the jetties. We have Courtney Carpenter, a reporter down there, and she was showing us a live picture throughout the morning. It was lit up, with the pier, the light from the pier, and it was really active, especially right around 5:30, 6 o'clock this morning. So from the wider shot, it doesn't maybe seem as active, but when they start zooming in on what's going on right at the tips of those jetties where those waves are coming ashore, it gets pretty impressive.
Not to mention, if you look on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see some folks kind of walking around here as we anticipated, right? This is a sort of an attraction for some people who just want to get their picture or, dip their toes in the water because obviously, we don't typically see stuff like this or these strong currents like what we're seeing right now. So just be safe, everybody. And like Jeff mentioned, this is our stream, but we're going to hang on a little after 8. We understand the mayor just may be speaking about the very latest in terms of the city preparations. And then again at 9 o'clock, we've got Fort Bend County Judge KP George, who's going to give us an update as well about the situation there in Fort Bend. So this is how we anticipate things are going to go. We're going to see city officials in front of podiums all day long, kind of talking about, preparations for the county, for the city, just keeping you and keeping your family safe.
And we know right now the storm surge for Fort Bend County, for Galveston County, looking at about 2 to 4 feet. And then, of course, around Bay City and that area, Matagorda Bay, 3 to 5 feet. So, we're definitely going to get some, high tides expected there. So if you don't have to be down around the coast, don't go down there. In fact, the road signs this morning on my way in, they're actually saying avoid going to the coast, so, it's good advice, trying to go down there.
Yeah, and not just along the coast, but really the messaging from Alita, from Kevin Roth, from Jeff Linder, is basically wherever you are at sundown, be sure to stay put until
right.
at least Wednesday morning. So now's the time to make the call, make the plans, keep the kiddos home. Obviously, school has been canceled today or early dismissal. All of that is on our website, abc13.com.
A friend of mine just texted me, what's it looking like? I said, look, if you're going to work, make sure you have an overnight bag.
Oh, yeah, and whatever you do, don't stay late at the office today. You got to get home early to prepare.
That's right. The city of Houston is preparing for heavy rain by lowering the water level in Lake Houston. Officials telling us that the lake is going to be lowered by 1 foot. The water level in the lake will be 41.5 feet. Process should be over right around noon today. If you're a property owner along Lake Houston, you're encouraged to go ahead and secure your boat and any other items you might have along the shoreline, because we do know things are going to get a little bit rough.
While in Galveston, lifeguard stands are now being removed from the beach there. Crews spent most of Sunday clearing anything that might get caught in that high surf.
So one thing we're going to be really watching for is increased, frequency and strength of rip currents, and that's going to be really prevalent near any structure like a pier or jetty. And so we always want to watch out for in storms. The kind of inexperienced surfers, if you're not coming down normally, don't come down for a storm for that kind of thing. But we also want to watch out for walking on these jetties. If the waves start breaking over it, we're looking at 4 foot, maybe as high as 6 foot on the beachfront tides.
Yeah, Corpus Christi is going to be in for a rough time as well. City officials down there opening up their emergency operations center, organizing sandbag giveaways, basically to help coastal residents prepare for Tropical Storm Nicholas. Again, storm surge is 3 to 5 feet down there, so officials say that they are starting to worry about severe flooding and the high potential for high water there as well. They're going to get a taste of this well before we do, and anything that happens down there, we're probably going to get a repeat here.
And further south, even if you look at the maps, not just Corpus Christi, but you're going all the way south to the tip of Texas, like Brownsville, Texas, Rio Grande Valley area. I'm sure they're preparing as well right now with all those sandbags, just kind of like we are here. You're definitely going to want to stay weather aware the next several days. You can watch our forecast no matter where you are. It's very easy. You just download our ABC 13 News app. You can check the radar. You can get weather alerts straight to your cell phone. That's also where Alita and the rest of our weather team will bring you streaming updates as we continue to track Nicholas.
I got a friend in Missouri City texting me right now. Says it's pouring pretty good right there in Missouri City. Not surprising. It's going to be raining all over the place. And we've seen even, here we've heard the rain, probably about an hour and a half ago. It was raining so heavily just here at ABC 13 Studios. We could hear it coming down.
Oh, yeah. We've seen the effects as well on the roadways. They're not only slick, but we've seen our fair share of accidents. Unfortunately, there were a couple of stalls this morning. Lots of flashing lights out there. Aside from the accidents, then you have some of those crews, city and county crews out there putting up the barriers, right? Letting folks know these are going to be the flood zone areas or the potential for. And so it's worth saying again, Charlie Ed City mentioned all those barriers, don't drive around them. No. Instead, respect them because they're there for a reason. You don't want to move them, right? Right. You could cause even more problems by removing anything like that. Houston TransStar showing us I-10 east at Cedar Lane. This was where there was a accident, right? Involving 2 cars. Looks like there's still sort of a slowdown.
It's still sort of a slowdown, and look, not only on inbound, outbound as well. All right, both sides of the interstate look like they're very, very slow at this hour. And you're going to probably encounter this pretty much anywhere you go this morning with the water on the roadway. There was an accident there, supposedly cleared, but again, it looks like a couple of cars still over there. So what's going on
looks like
over there?
2 vehicles are involved. Right shoulder, 3 frontage road lanes are blocked right now, which is causing all this. I don't see the flashing lights though.
It might be.
Am I missing it?
It might be right in. You see on where the exit ramp is, right?
Oh, yeah, you can't see
so you
them.
can see,
Okay.
probably just beyond that. So that's the podium right now. We're getting ready to hear from Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner. Supposed to have a press conference right at 8 o'clock this morning. Delayed for just a little bit, but we've got a pool camera there right now. As soon as the mayor steps up to the podium, we will, of course, bring this to you live. And, we can anticipate the mayor's probably going to be saying kind of what Alita has been saying all morning long. If you're going to go somewhere this morning, be sure that that's where you're going to stay when you get there, because coming home might be very problematic. I know my wife works in the medical center. Before she left this morning, last night I went out the garage, I put in a cot in her trunk, I put in a sleeping bag, I put in a pillow for her, and just because, hey, look, she might not be able to get home. Sometimes these hospitals have ride-out teams. She's not certain she's going to be on the ride-out team, but if
you
she
just
is,
never know.
Yeah. And if you don't have this stuff, if you're not ready for it, well, it's a miserable night, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like Sylvester Turner mentioned, now he's not at the podium right there, but he did put out a couple tweets this morning, so obviously probably very little sleep
Right.
given the fact that we knew that this was coming over the weekend. So he said, look, we're expecting heavy rain tonight and going into tomorrow. I would strongly encourage you to stay off the roads this evening, going into tomorrow. Same messaging. See, we're all on the same page with Alita. Please do not attempt to drive through flooded streets or go around the barricades, which is what we've been telling folks as well. And his last tweet about an hour ago says, you know, help yourself out and help us out and plan to be off the roads by sundown. So obviously in coordination with or aligned with what Jeff Lindner said as well. Wherever you are tonight, beginning around 7 o'clock, be sure that you stay put, and then obviously you're going to be there until about Wednesday morning till all this can clear.
Yeah, that's right. You know, by Tuesday afternoon, by Tuesday evening, we're probably going to be all clear from this, hopefully. But yeah, we're in for, you know, a good 24 to 30 hours. So Jeff Lindner was talking about this as well, of some heavy extended rainfall. Some areas possibly as much as 20 inches. Some areas maybe a little bit more than 20 inches. And it doesn't really take that much rain to cause big problems in some of our neighborhoods, as we've seen over and over again.
Right.
You know, Labor Day storms and tax day storms, you know, those are just regular old storms. Now we're talking about a tropical storm headed our way. And you know, Rita, from being here for so long, and I know from being here so long, a tropical storm is nothing to play around with.
No,
you know,
no.
You know, it's surprising. You know, Steve Campion went down to Galveston yesterday. He was talking to people about being out on the beach, and one lady said she didn't know anything was going on. You know, so it's possible that a lot of people don't know, or still some people don't. But you've got to be really careful, especially if you're not familiar with the route that you take. You know, if you have to go around an area, you have the streets closed, okay, well, I'll go this way. You just don't know. And we've seen so many times people just getting into trouble because they just didn't understand just how severe the water was going to be on the road.
Yeah, this is definitely no joke, especially for folks who are not familiar with our area. Maybe they just moved here. It doesn't take much, folks and friends, you know, for the streets to start ponding and for you to see significant street flooding that we've seen in the past. And I'll admit, Jeff, you know, yeah, I'm familiar with this type of stuff, but I just moved back from Los Angeles, so I've needed a little bit of a refresher course.
Yes.
Hey, it took a big rainstorm at my place for the power to go out, and I said, where's the flashlight? Where's the batteries? Where's this? Where's that? We don't even have bottled water. So for that reason, we went ahead and prepared. So, you know, food, water, batteries. A portable radio could be good as well, right? Just download our app. That's the other thing you want to do, because if you lose power, you can always stream us. Prescription medications. Don't forget about our furry friends, right? Pet supplies. Don't forget to bring your pups in. That's the other thing. You know, you just want to watch out for stuff like that.
Yeah, and if there's a neighborhood that gets inundated, hopefully there won't be. Hopefully this will be, you know, no big deal, and we'll look back on it and go, well, at least we got a chance to get ready. But if there are neighborhoods that flood, you know, this happens so quickly. You know, people often tell us, oh, I went to sleep, and then middle of the night I woke up and I got out of bed and I put my feet down in water. Well, that's too late to start preparing, you know, as far as getting medications together. Or if you're, you know, like you say, your pets need medication. When you're standing in water, you're not really going to be thinking about what do I need to do to leave here and, you know, and to sustain myself for a few days somewhere else. So now's a good time to start doing that. You might not need your emergency kit this time, but at some point, I guarantee you, you will.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got our meteorologist, Kevin Roth. We've got two meteorologists with us this morning. Kevin, I don't see you, but I think I can hear you. Are you there?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, swinging by here. I just wanted to give an update on some of those watches and warnings. We do have a hurricane watch in effect for some of our areas, and this pertains to the wind speeds that we're going to see. Look, the primary concern, without a doubt, is the rain, and it's going to be that sustained rain, the heavy rain that we're going to see. But we're also going to see some significant winds here, and that's why those areas farther to the south and west, we do have a hurricane watch in effect, and that means you could see the potential for winds 74 miles per hour or stronger in these areas. That's northern parts of Brazoria, Matagorda, and Jackson counties, and areas off to the south and west. Some of us could see wind speeds that strong. The vast majority of us are going to see that rain. And as you keep this rolling, I want to show you some of the tropical storm force winds, which extends here north of I-10. This bright yellow being a tropical storm warning. That mustard yellow there would be a tropical storm watch. Either way, in both of these areas, we're talking about the potential here for wind speeds 39 to 73 miles per hour, and that is enough where you could see some spotty power outages. I'm not expecting widespread or prolonged power outages with these winds, but certainly the potential for some of those outages. Of course, we also have the storm surge that we have to talk about as well. What we're going to see here are these tropical storm force winds pushing up right around that I-10 corridor, about a 50% chance of seeing tropical storm force winds in Houston. 60% in Katy, 60% in Sugar Land, Pearland, Pasadena, 50%. As you go farther to the north and east, that probability of seeing tropical storm force winds really starts to wind down pretty quickly. As you head farther southwest, the probability of seeing the tropical storm force winds climbs. If you're in an area like Bay City or Palacios, it is nearly a given that you will see winds of tropical storm force or stronger. The issue with these winds here is that they're going to be going around the center of circulation. So if this is the center of circulation, then these winds are going to be going counterclockwise around that, and it's going to take all of that water and it's going to push it up into these bays, push it up into Galveston Bay, push it up into Matagorda Bay, and that's that storm surge threat. With any tropical system, you have four main threats. You've got the heavy rain, and certainly that's our primary concern, because whether you are along the coast or whether you are farther inland, you could deal with that heavy rain. So that's the primary concern. Of course, you also have the winds, and we're talking about tropical storm force winds for a good portion of the area, I-10 and south. While that rain picks up later today, those tropical storm force winds are going to hold off until later tonight and into tomorrow. You've got the storm surge. We're talking about that here, 3 to 5 feet in an area from the San Luis Pass down to Matagorda Bay, storm surge. 2 to 4 feet from the San Luis Pass up into Louisiana. That is significant. That can certainly cause some issues there. Some of those lower lying areas, the Bolivar Peninsula comes to mind as one of those spots that can quickly become flooded with that storm surge. And then last but not least, you also have the threat of tornadoes with any tropical system. So those are the four threats here. It's the flood risk, it's the winds, the storm surge, and the potential for some tornadoes. In any tropical system, you can spin up tornadoes in those outer bands. These generally are not long-lasting, large, powerful tornadoes. They're quick, brief spin-up tornadoes, but they're certainly possible, and that's one of the many reasons why. Once this system really starts to move in and once this system clears up, the last thing that you want to do is be out and about on the roads, because not only do you have to worry about that flooding potential that we talked about, but exacerbated along with that, those winds, the heavy rain, the storm surge if you're on the coast, and then the tornadoes as well. So all of those are potential issues. Those waves are certainly going to be elevated as well, but gradually that's going to wind down as the system pushes inland. We talked to some folks out in Galveston, and they mentioned, look, the last thing you want to do if you're not used to this is be out on the water in conditions like this. Well, look at some of the rainfall totals here, and I want to show you the different models and what they're showing. And by piecing these together, we can get a good idea for what we can expect going forward. Again, the heavy rain's already starting in waves, but as you go through the day, as you head into the evening especially, those waves are going to be more frequent. It's going to be more sustained heavy rain. And after that sun sets, it's going to be basically nonstop through at least tomorrow morning. Let me go ahead and put on this telestrator, and I want to circle here through these different models where we're seeing some of the heaviest of the rainfall. With this particular model, this is the GFS, the heaviest of the rain here coming in roughly in an area just like that. Areas along the coast are seeing the highest, where a spot like Pearland, this model says, picks up 8 inches, Pasadena 7, Houston about 5. Let's cycle through some of these forecast models. Now we're headed to a brand new model, a GFS model, and again, you see a very similar idea as far as where the heaviest of the rains will be. This is yet another different forecast model. Again, it's those same areas that are highlighted, and what that means is that we're coming into better agreement with who is going to see the heaviest of the rains. And it is a fairly wide swath here. It includes that I-10 corridor. It includes Katy, stretches out towards Winnie with some of the heaviest of the rain. It's north of I-10 as well, where areas like Humble and Liberty could pick up legitimate flooding rains. They've actually extended that flash flood warning off to the north and west a bit. But it is primarily and especially those locations, I-10 and south, all the way down to the coast, we're going to see the most significant rain. And this is all inland rain. This does not include the storm surge that I was talking about earlier. So if you're adding in here 3 to 5 feet of storm surge in some locations coastal, plus these areas could pick up 10 inches of rain potentially. That is a combination for some serious inundation of the water. And that's why, especially along the coast, you've got some serious concerns. Anywhere, even farther inland, even north of I-10, once that sun sets tonight, you want to be off the roads. You want to stay off the roads. And wherever you are, once that sun sets, you want to stay there until the system clears out, which likely is not going to happen until at the earliest midday Tuesday, and it could be prolonged past that. We'll have to see just how this is moving once this goes inland. Bottom line is these conditions will continue to deteriorate. We're looking at excessive rainfall rates here for a good portion of the area, not just one or two spots picking up that really heavy rain.
All right, Kevin, thanks. You know, normally we end the stream at 8 a.m., but we are anticipating a news conference from Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner to start really any moment. So we wanted to stay on air on the news stream at least until that happens. But we do want to take a quick break right now for a Good Morning America weather cut-in. So we will be right back here in just a minute.
Good morning, friends. Happy Monday. It's all about Nicholas. You can see the heavy rains that are already pushing inland. This feeder band continues to push inland this morning. Deteriorating weather conditions out there right now in the form of rain. The winds will be picking up as this system pulls onshore later on this evening, making landfall somewhere along the coastline here of Matagorda Bay and then raining itself out as it moves to the north and east. But that rain is going to be a prolific rainfall maker, anywhere between 3 to 4 inches per hour. You want to hunker down this evening.
All right, folks, welcome back again. We are waiting for a press conference with Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner. It's supposed to happen any minute now, but in the meantime, we've got an accident to tell you about. This is East X Freeway at Will Clayton, headed towards a big airport. You can see one car over there on the inbound lane there, the inside lane against the wall there. So just be careful if you're driving in this area. Obviously, we're continuing to monitor the situation going on with Tropical Storm Nicholas. One thing that caught my eye, the National Weather Service out of Corpus Christi sending out some preliminary information as far as the wind speed goes. And apparently they've gotten some tropical storm force wind gusts at around 7:30 this morning. They reported that Laguna Shores had 44 miles an hour gusts. Corpus Christi Naval Air Station, 40-mile-an-hour gusts. Southeast Aransas Pass also with 40-mile-an-hour gusts, and the same thing with Baffin Bay. So the wind speed's picking up down there. Conditions starting to deteriorate a little bit south of us, and of course we know we're going to get hit as well.
Right. We saw some video earlier out of Corpus Christi, right, where they were filling up those sandbags, loading them up. Many folks they've been through this before. You know, their fair share of hurricanes. Nonetheless, people have moved there and they're brand new, so they're certainly in for a wet start to today, tomorrow, well into Wednesday. And as Alita was talking about, as you see on the left-hand side of your screen, this is going to affect folks even further south from Corpus Christi. I mean, the tip of Texas right there, Brownsville, Texas, that area, Harlingen, McAllen, if you're familiar, all of those folks are going to get drenched in this system as well. So we take a live picture on the right-hand side of Galveston. All looks okay, right? Earlier, we saw a few more cars parked out there. Many people want to get a picture, just kind of see what's going on. I think it's safe to say this is definitely the calm before things really start to get active. The messaging we've been telling you all morning and we've been hearing from city, county officials is the bottom line is don't work late, and as soon as you get home today from work, plan to stay put until at least Wednesday when all of this clears out. We want to remind you as well, we're waiting on a news conference from our mayor, Sylvester Turner. We saw the podium there, the microphone, looks like they're just getting ready to give us an update. He will join us from the Houston Emergency Center to talk about the city preparations as well.
Yeah, and a lot of what the mayor, we anticipate him saying is basically what we've been telling you all morning long. You know, like we're going to get quite a bit of rain, you know, starting now and into, you know, the later hours of Monday afternoon and then into Tuesday morning, Tuesday night. So again, if you don't have to be on the roadways, please try to stay home. And that advice is especially true for afternoon. You know, if you have to go to work, maybe you can cut out of there a little bit early, or if you're like my wife, you're in the ride-out crew and you have to stay there, make sure you've got all the stuff that you need now rather than trying to wait for it for later, because things are going to get rough and it might be a little bit difficult to get home tonight, and maybe I might not be able to get home smoothly until sometime Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, and it's not just Nicholas that we're concerned about. You know, Kevin Roth was just on. If you missed it, he talked about how there were 4 things that come along with these types of systems. He said it's going to be the flooding. It's going to be the things like the winds. Of course, you're talking about the storm surge, and then the potential for tornadoes are going to be the biggest threats with Tropical Storm Nicholas. So just on a side note, he also mentions once the sun sets tonight, you'll want to be off those roads and stay put. We can't stress and say that enough because, you know, it's very dangerous out there. For that reason, crews are out putting their barricades in those flood zones. You guys know your neighborhoods, right? You know if your streets are flooding. Looks like we got someone walking up here, probably just trying to check the mic and check the audio and make sure that everything's okay before this news conference starts.
Yep, and Jeff Lindner also tweeted out about 23 minutes ago that some squalls are moving inland from the coast, producing 40 to 50 mile an hour wind gusts in Surfside, that there was a gust up to 50 miles an hour as a band moved inland, and those bands not taking too long to get here as well. So plenty of rain headed our way, and especially the folks down around the coast. I mean, you're already getting hit by this, and I know we had our Courtney Carpenter out at Galveston Island earlier this morning, and she is actually being able to watch this start to devolve, the situation there.
Yeah, I think the other silver lining to this, don't you think, Jeff, is that, you know, we've had plenty of time to prepare, obviously, right? Not just today, but really this is a system that we've been monitoring since Friday. For that reason, Governor Greg Abbott also ordered the State Operations Center to increase its level to the readiness level 2. What does that mean, you ask? Basically, that state resources are now on standby along the Gulf Coast from Beaumont all the way to the Rio Grande Valley to Brownsville, Harlan, and McAllen, like I was saying. So in terms of those state resources, we're talking about Texas A&M Task Force 1. They've got 6 swiftwater rescue boat squads out. The game warden boat teams have also been put on standby. Texas Military Department, 5 ground transportation platoons with high-profile vehicles, right, just in case. Medical task force teams are also on the ready. I believe it was Bree Berry who mentioned the American Red Cross is also well aware of what's going on. They're getting ready to set up some shelters should we need them. So that's the silver lining, like I was mentioning, is that we are not caught off guard. We are, you know, we have some time here to prepare. Bree also mentioned during your lunch hour, if you have some time, head out and get those supplies.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And right, you know, we've been following the storm since late last week, and you know, oftentimes, a lot of time, folks won't really pay attention until there's a hurricane or a named storm, and we only just got this thing named, you know, not long ago. So hopefully everybody's been paying attention to it. You know, maybe over the weekend you weren't monitoring it as closely as you should have been. But I know from, you know, my social media, probably yours as well, read of people asking all kinds of questions. You know, where's it going to hit and what's going to happen? This is
look at that shot,
Galveston.
live pics.
Actually, doesn't look too bad there right now. You know, this is probably between those feeder bands that start to come in. So that's the cruise ship terminal there on the bay side of Galveston Island. And it looks like they're getting ready to go out.
And you know, that's the thing is when you look at it, gosh, looks can be so deceiving because it's like, oh, okay, well, all is well. Well, it's 8:22 in the morning. By 7 o'clock tonight, that's when things are going to get really hairy. Alita just put out a tweet. I wanted to read it for you. It says, Nicholas expected to make landfall this evening around Matagorda Bay, so conditions will continue to worsen throughout the day. That's hence looks can be deceiving, right? Flash flooding concerns will increase this evening and overnight. The flash flood watch goes into effect at 7 p.m. until 7 p.m. Tuesday, that is. Flash flood watch in effect until 7 p.m. Tuesday.
And this storm gaining in strength from when you went to bed overnight until this morning, and then also starting to slow down a bit. So now you're looking at like, I think it's moving at around 5 miles an hour at the last time that they took a look at it and updated it. And that's the thing that always concerns me. Anytime there's a storm, a tropical storm or hurricane that just doesn't seem to want to move very quickly. To me, 5 miles an hour seems pretty slow. But I asked Jeff Lindner about this about an hour ago. You know, were you concerned that it's 5 miles an hour? And he was like, no, I think it's fast enough to get it, you know, in and out without too many problems. But you know, as we look at the raincast, you know, 8 inches of rain predicted for Houston, 9 inches for Liberty, Humboldt with 7.5 inches. You know, over on the east side, Pasadena, you're looking like you're going to get about 9 inches of rain or so. And then, as you know, anytime these bands of rain come in, you could get a lot more than that in certain spots. So we're definitely in for some rainfall, and it's definitely going to be going over, you know, a good 24-hour to 30-hour period. So get ready, folks. It's coming.
Yeah, the mayor, Sylvester Turner, summed it up in one tweet, and I'll read it for you. It says, help yourself out and help us out and plan to be off the roads by sundown. Obviously, not just help yourself out because we want to keep you safe, but help our crews out there. You know, that way, you know, you don't want to tie up any sort of their high-profile vehicles or, you know, the emergency response for they could be very busy, as we've seen in the past.
That's right. That's right. I've been in neighborhoods where, if there's 100, houses in the neighborhood, 95 of them have people in them when the storm hits, and those families have to be evacuated, and those big trucks are, the one that goes into those neighborhoods and gets people out.
Right.
So be careful with that.
As we look at that shot, we're off to a gloomy, dark day. Unfortunately, this morning at 8:25, this is how we're starting off your Monday. Of course, this is sort of the calm before things really get hairy out there. We want to remind you that we are waiting on a news conference. Mayor Sylvester Turner, we expect him to join us from the Houston Emergency Center, kind of to talk about the city preparations. And then it's 8:25 now. While we wait for the mayor, coming up at 9 o'clock, we do expect as well, we're going to have an update from Fort Bend County as well. The judge, KP George, is going to talk to us about sort of the preparations going on in Fort Bend, as well as collaborations with the emergency management officials and the preparations that you can expect out there.
And while we wait on all that, we're going to turn over to Good Morning America's weather cut-in. Elita Loreska will be up in just less than a minute to give you the very latest on the track and the intensity of Tropical Storm Nicholas. We'll be right back.
Welcome back on this Monday morning, 8:27, and we are monitoring Tropical Storm Nicholas still offshore, but notice how the conditions now along the coastline continue to deteriorate. We are anticipating some very, very rough seas. In fact, the projected wind speeds by this afternoon increasing between 40 to 50 knots. We have tropical storm warnings in effect along the coastline, even hurricane watches, and these conditions will persist at least for the next 24 to 36 hours. Gulf waves anywhere between 7 to 10 feet will be common, but there could be some elevated heights over 15 feet there. Surf temperatures in the low 80s. As I mentioned, there are some hurricane watches in effect, mainly along the immediate coastline. So Brazoria, Matagorda County, also Calhoun County under that hurricane watch. Those hurricane force winds expected as that storm system nears the coastline later on tonight. So your timeline to prepare, or at least get your preparations completed, are slowly starting to wind down. So you definitely need to take the next few hours to do that, because once the sun goes down, you want to make sure you hunker down. Storm surge watches and warnings in effect down along our coastal communities from Port O'Connor up toward the San Luis Pass. You can expect storm surge between 3 to 5 feet, and then from San Luis Pass along the Texas-Louisiana border between 2 to 4 feet there. We are dealing with some rain, heavy at times. This is that first wave. This storm system is expected to drift northward and then veer to the north and east. Right now, it is not expected to slow down. This is moving fairly slowly, but we're anticipating the forward speed to pick up as it nears the coast of Matagorda Bay later on today. How much rain? Most areas between 5 to 10 inches. Most of that rain is going to fall this afternoon into the evening. Again, you do not want to be out on the roads once the sun goes down, at least through tomorrow.
Another live picture of Galveston Island this morning. Again, waiting for a news conference with Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner. Supposed to happen here in a few moments. And then after that, at 9 o'clock this morning, we're going to be going down to Fort Bend County and hearing from KP George, county judge there. You see a live picture from the Houston Emergency Center. There's Mayor Sylvester Turner and other city of folks getting ready to hopefully kind of give us a briefing on what's going on and what they expect to happen with Tropical Storm Nicholas. The city is telling people right now, make sure the drains are clear. That helps them improve water drainage so the streets will not get substantial flooding. We know that substantial rainfall is coming our way. The city also saying, hey, look, you probably should have 5 to 7 days worth of food and water and necessary supplies. And of course, that means your prescription medication as well.
And a portable radio. Don't forget about your furry friends, the pet supplies. Is the photographer there? Oh, it sounds like they're saying good morning. Let's see. Let's listen.
Tropical Storm Nicholas. Well, I think we have Dan. Dan, are you on the line? Here. Okay. Dan from the National Weather Service. Is Dan from the National Weather Service here? We'd like to see if we can start with a weather update. Is anybody on from the National Weather Service? Okay, then we're going to get kicked off. Mayor?
Yeah, let me just, I know we're at level 3. Level 3, yes. Yeah, at this point, kind of monitoring the progression of the storm very, very carefully. I know everything is pretty much in place. Who's Public Works here? They'll be on the call, Mayor. Okay. So who's all on the call this morning?
We should have all of the city departments. We were just going to, once we got words from you, Mayor and Chief Unic, we're going to run through the departments and get their a briefing on what they've stood up and what their preparation level are.
Yeah, but let me just kind of want to monitor things very, very carefully, almost on an hourly basis, to kind of see how things are going. That'll give us an indication of what sort of messaging we need to do throughout the day. I know a lot of people are relying on us to kind of tell them where things are. And I know as the day progresses, there'll be more rain falling this evening in particular. From my vantage point, you know, I want to do everything we can to get people off the roads by sundown. It'll make it just easier on everybody. I'd rather be safe than sorry. And then I know a lot of school districts are going to closing, especially for tomorrow, which is going to impact even city employees. So I'll make a determination later on today as to what the status of municipal employees will be on tomorrow. But the main thing is that this appears to be a rain event, and just what I think many of us know, especially if you've been living in this city, where the low-lying areas are. And if you get 2 to 3 to 4 inches of rain in an hour, streets are going to flood. And so we just want to make sure that people are not driving through flooded roads, flooded streets. So, but I'm anxious to see what the departments have done in preparation for the weather event. Chief Unic.
Great. Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to all of our partners that are on the call and that have been assisting us the last 2 days as we monitor the storm. We activated our Emergency Operations Center this morning at 6 o'clock, and we will remain open 24 hours, probably into Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon, until the storm passes. Mark, see if National Weather Service.
Dan, Riley, or anybody from National Weather Service, have you got on the call?
Move on.
Okay. Well, we're going to start with Houston Public Works. Public Works on the line. Brian or Director Haddock. Everybody put your phones on mute, please. Can y'all hear us from the OEM?
I don't know if they can pick us up.
I don't think anybody can hear us. Ask if they're receiving us again.
Can anybody hear us from the OEM?
Yeah, I don't
Let's do it over.
You are not allowed to unmute. To raise your hand, press *5. You are allowed to unmute. To unmute yourself, press *6.
Good morning from the OEM.
You are no longer muted.
Okay, right.
Can y'all hear us from the OEM?
Hey Tom, yeah, this is Frank at the airport. We can hear you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tropical Storm Nicholas first coordination call. Is Dan Raleigh on the line for a weather briefing?
I don't think
Or anyone from the National Weather Service?
So basically what we're looking at here is a briefing with Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner, making sure they're trying to get everybody to call in and make sure that they can hear the folks going on at the Emergency Operations Center. This is obviously one of those things that were probably hastily called earlier this morning, trying to getting everybody coordinated at 8 o'clock this morning, proving to be a little bit difficult. But basically the mayor's point being, hey, look, we want to get everybody off the road by this afternoon so people are not in the roadways, they're not in the way of rescue workers who might need to get to people, and just make it easier for everyone if you are off the road by sundown tonight. And of course, tomorrow they're going to try to figure out exactly what's going on with the school systems. HISD at this point still open. They have not said that they're going to close yet, but we're going to continue to listen in. But we will be going to a Good Morning America cut-in with weather in about 4 minutes.
The bulk of the heavy rain is going to be coming in late tonight and tomorrow as Tropical Storm Nicholas moves its way up the coast. So we're looking at several hours of moderate to heavy rain as we get into the overnight period and tomorrow morning especially. That's going to be our main concern. There will be some gusty winds as well with the tropical storm. But the main concern for Houston is going to be the rain. Right now we're looking at most likely 6 to 10 inches of rain, but that could be higher if we get any sort of banding with the system. So that's kind of what we're looking at now. The rainfall forecast has trended a little bit down today as we're looking at the storm moving a little more quickly, but it still means several hours of heavy rain and some flooding overnight and tomorrow morning.
Okay, give me your assessment of what you think the rain conditions will be between now and let's say 6 p.m. today.
I think
can I help you?
Heavy downpours moving in now, but they're not going to last that long. So we could see some sort of street flooding here and there today, but probably no more than that. The main
Can you unmute your phone?
Overnight tonight and tomorrow morning.
Okay, so because I know people are anxious to hear what will be taking place during the course of the day. For example, people who are at work. So let's say between noon and 6, any idea of how much rain you're expecting?
Yes, Mayor. I think we're going to be okay this afternoon, other than these localized heavy downpours, maybe some localized street flooding. But I think by and large, today is kind of a preparation day, and then tonight and tomorrow morning, the morning rush hour tomorrow could be very difficult. But the way it looks now, a bit stormy, some localized heavy rain, but the bulk of it now looks to be coming tonight. So I think. I think people should probably be fine today. If you're in a localized heavy downpour, maybe wait it out. But the biggest concern is going to be overnight tomorrow morning.
Okay, and then in terms of tomorrow, are we expecting rain pretty much all day tomorrow, or do you anticipate it tapering off sometime during the day?
Mayor, I'd say the hardest part of the forecast now is gauging the speed of the storm. So I would plan on rain pretty much all day. There are some models that take it through, by afternoon, but I think I would plan on rain pretty much most of the day, probably moving north of here by evening.
Okay.
But that part of the forecast is a little bit still uncertain at the speed. Worst case for us would be the storm to kind of slow down and give us a longer period of rain. Most of the models now, though, do pull it out of here by tomorrow evening.
Okay. And are we expecting, and when you say tonight, just kind of give me some idea of tonight, you're expecting heavy rain to be?
I'm ABC 13 meteorologist Alita Loreska, continuing to track Tropical Storm Nicholas. 60-mile-per-hour winds. The heavy rains will be ongoing. We'll see a bigger batch of rain coming in this afternoon and evening. It will make landfall this evening along the coastline of Matagorda Bay.
All right, we were monitoring Mayor Spencer Turner's meeting with city leaders and city departments, just trying to check in to find out what's going on in anticipation of the rain coming our way. That call looks like it started to wrap up, or at least our access to it, but a couple of those strong points that the mayor wanted to know. Basically, give us an idea of when it's going to be bad. Everybody wants to know when it's going to be bad. And from the National Weather Service, we heard them saying that, look, today's probably going to be okay, but it's going to start picking up. It's going to rain tonight. It's going to be raining. He basically said, look, the morning rush tomorrow is going to be really bad. So like we've been saying all along, if you're going to go somewhere and you're going to hang out there tonight, stay there tonight and plan on being there for 24 hours.
Right. The representative from the National Weather Service also said 6 to 10 inches, but it could be higher if there's some banding with this system. So for the most part, their biggest concern was certainly the localized heavy downpours. And to quote Mayor Sylvester Turner, he said, I want to do everything we can to get everybody off the roads by sundown. School districts are closing, and then they'll make a determination later on today with what happens tomorrow. But certainly that is the takeaway, is sundown is the key, right? You definitely don't want to push it and be too close if you can. Right. If you're headed into work and you're watching us on the stream, it might be a good idea to check out early, because by the time the sun sets, things are going to get really rough out there. As Alita was saying, also, things are just going to deteriorate today, right? Yep. And we don't anticipate this to move out of our area until Wednesday. So, and unfortunately, we lost the connection to the emergency management meeting. We're working on getting that back for you. We'll see if it's available, but yeah, and Fort Bend County, remember, is going to give us an update at about 9 o'clock. So in 15 minutes or so, we're going to hear from the county judge there, KP George, about their response and sort of what they're doing. And the emergency management officials are going to talk about Nicholas and the preparations for Fort Bend. Yeah, and they basically were saying that, once this starts kicking off and once we start seeing the worst of it, that we're going to see several hours of moderate to heavy rainfall tomorrow, Tuesday, especially as the storm starts to pick up steam and come through our area. Most likely 6 to 10 inches of rain. Could be higher depending on what's going on. And really, they're looking at the speed of the storm. If the storm continues to move fairly quickly, then it won't be a problem, as you all know. But if we get a storm that comes in and stalls, and there are a couple of models, at least, I think maybe the European model that slows it down a bit, that can make things a little more tricky. But the mayor really wanted to press them, okay, what's going on right now to 6 p.m.? And I think the reason he wants to do that is to make sure everybody has enough time to go ahead and get where you're going to go and then stay off the road. And basically wants people to kind of stay out of the way, stay off the roads, just to make it easier for everyone involved. If there's any rescues that need to be taking place, you being out on the road certainly does slow that down. So just keep that in mind. Looks like the mayor pretty much is satisfied with some of these answers, knowing that right now to 6 p.m. at least, if you went to work, you're probably going to be able to make it home pretty easily. Just don't spend a whole lot of extra time at work. Not to mention, you probably want to be off the roads as well to let all the first responders get to where they need to be, and all those high-profile vehicles, all of that. So listen, we're going to end our stream here. It's 8:44, but we're going to be back at 9 o'clock. Fort Bend County Judge KP George and the emergency management officials are going to give us an update on what they're doing in their county to prepare, and we're going to stream that live as well right here on our stream. Again, as we let you go for the day, just be prepared, stay safe out there, and remember to download our app. All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this early Monday morning. And as you know, we are dealing with a Tropical Storm Nicholas. Our Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management has been closely monitoring the situation as usual. Our Joint Information Center has been activated since noon yesterday. And it is fully staffed to deal with any situation arises at this point. Yesterday, tropical storm warnings were issued for the coastal Texas and northeastern coast of Mexico, with Nicholas expected to produce heavy storm. Produce storm with a total rainfall of anywhere from 8 to 10 inches, with isolated maximum rainfall we expect up to 15 inches certain areas, which include coastal Texas and into up to certain parts of Louisiana throughout midweek. It is a heavy rainfall and flash flood warning at this point in Fort Bend County. That is a concern because we have a very flat terrain, and that is absolutely a concern for our Office of Emergency Management and emergency managers. However, this is not just a threat to the coastal communities. Highland, heavy rainfall, flooding can occur inland. The reason I say this, if any one of you remember, 2002 Allison, Tropical Storm Allison was just a tropical storm, but it created the maximum damage to our area. So we wanted to be prepared. We hope that is not the case this time, but we wanted to be prepared. Currently, Fort Bend County is under a flash flood watch in effect through tomorrow evening. We know that one of the things about these storms, as you all know, it is very unpredictable. It is a possibility for Tropical Storm Nicholas to get stronger. And we are, every step, we are watching it, we are monitoring it, and we will communicate with the residents and the people in this area. I want to say I want to tell our Fort Bend County residents, while we are anticipating Nicholas coming through our area, but we don't expect a severe condition as of now. This always can change when you talk about weather situation. You absolutely should be prepared. We are talking about this hurricane preparation since May, and I hope you are prepared. If you're not, please take care of certain steps which we repeated many times, and you might be already aware of it, and having a kit, enough food, water, medicine, and keeping all the documents together just in case, and have a plan. Just in case if you have to evacuate, where you're going to go, how you're going to manage that, have a plan and a conversation with your family members and also the people, your close family and friends. Have a conversation. Stay informed. Stay informed is the most important thing because this storm is developing, and every step of the way it can change its direction, its intensity, and things of that nature. Stay monitored. We are monitoring, so that means please get information from the reliable sources as our local TV stations, radio. And also, I encourage you to sign up, if you are not already, with testing with our emergency alert system, which is you dial 888-777, and you punch in FBC alert. So you're going to be part of that system so that we will be pushing out information, important information, as and when it is necessary. Also, stay up to date following our social media, which include Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. Our Office of Emergency Management and also Fort Bend County Judge's Office and other department will be constantly pushing out information based on availability, based on things change, and we will be updating. Please stay tuned. And also encourage, take action to minimize damages. And I will also ask our most experienced person, Mark Flathouse, to explain this in detail. How do you minimize the damages? And again, monitor local TV station and also radio and other source of information, and know your potential risk. Have a plan to evacuate if in case you need it. Be sure the emergency supplies on hand. And I will now invite our Office of Emergency Management Manager and also Fire Marshal Mark Flathouse to give a brief update how to prepare and what you need to do next. Mark?
Good morning. Mark Flathouse, Emergency Management Director, Coordinator underneath the Judge's Office. A couple of things. First, last 24 hours we have been activated. Our Emergency Operations Center has been activated. We have been working due diligently along with the news, media, and the weather, along with the region and the state, to make sure that we're prepared for anything that comes our way. Currently right now, the report this morning is the tract is coming more a little bit inland and directly up towards our county and on north. With that being said, we get updates about every 3 to 4 hours and we adjust accordingly. We know that rain can drop anywhere from 5 to 10 inches, but the kick is we don't know where or what is going to happen in the next 24, 48 hours. It could stall out, it can move. It's very unpredictable. As we all know that live in a coastal area and a community, things change, but we are prepared and we will be prepared for anything that comes our way. Our EOC, as stated, is activated over the next 24 hours. We will be pushing out the correct information and information that's coming directly from our meteorologists, along with our drainage and everything moving to our road and bridge and our road closures or any impact. The initial threat that I see and working with my team and the experts that we have here in Fort Bend County is really flash flooding and the initial impact of large rains at a quick few minutes to hours. Flash flooding is an impact that we want to make sure that we stress is stay home, don't drive. The impact of the major of the rain is going to be throughout this next evening into Tuesday, and we want to make sure that everybody is aware and has where they get their information from Homeland Security Emergency Management, from the Judge's Office, and information out. With road closures, we'll keep up to date with the Sheriff's Office and our road and bridge to make sure we can put barricades out. And these are all things that we're preparing today to be ready for. So stay home, be alert, be prepared. We talked about being prepared. Make sure that you don't have stuff out around your house that can be debris. We're only expecting some winds, not heavy gusts being inland, but you never know what could happen during these storms that come through. So make sure your surrounding area is all safe for any debris. Also make sure that your vehicles are topped off with fuel over the next 24 hours and everything as we move forward. But again, keep in mind, flash flooding is initial impact of water, and it could impact your drive or driving at night. Minimize that the best you can and work on it depending upon what rains and how much rain drops. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And also I will invite, as I mentioned, Fort Bend is a flat terrain. Drainage is always an important discussion, how, where the water is receding. And so I just wanted to call Mark Vogler, our drainage director, to come and give an update on what you see, Mark, the situation of the rivers and our ditches and bayous and all that stuff. Please come forward.
Thank you. Our rivers, the Brazos River, the Salmonard River, are both in low stages right now. So at this point, we're in fairly good shape. Our channels are all open. We've been maintaining them all through the summer. Ground conditions are relatively dry at this point, so we couldn't be in better shape with this storm coming. But that doesn't mean we're not going to have flooding problems. It depends on how fast the storm moves, how fast the rainfall comes on us. And those conditions are going to control what we see going forward. So as Mark Flathouse said, stay home if you can. Don't travel areas you're not familiar with. You know areas that have flooded in the past, and so when we get significant rainfall, expect those same areas to flood. and we will continue to monitor these things and report to the Office of Emergency Management as we find information also. And with that, we'll turn it back over to the judge.
Thank you. And today, obviously, as I mentioned, the Office of Emergency Management is in full-fledged, and we have Alan Spears. You wanted to add anything to what we just said so far? Please go ahead. Yeah.
Just a couple words. I want to reiterate what everybody else said today. You know, have a plan, build a kit, be prepared, and stay informed. Those are things that we can do right now ahead of time, and those are things that you can prepare you for future storms also. Mark Vogler had mentioned our rivers and bayous and things like that are in good shape. As in the past, I know some people are concerned about the Addicks and Barker reservoirs. We've been in touch with the Army Corps of Engineers. Both reservoirs are empty right now, so they have a very good capacity for water right now. So we're not too concerned about those. But like I said, you know, keep informed. If you're driving, if you have to drive at night, turn around, don't drown. That is the standard that we try to pass on to everybody that we can, and as often as we can. So stay safe, listen to local authorities, listen to news media. We will be putting things out on social media too. So, you know, the main thing is stay informed and make good decisions.
Thank you, Alan. And with that, thank you. We will be holding briefings as and when it is available, and that's going to be throughout today, tomorrow. And I want to say, Fort Bend County residents, to sign up for FBC alert system so that we will send you the text alerts so that you know what is exactly going on firsthand. And also, you heard from the experts. Now I'm talking to our residents. Be safe. And our number one concern is your safety. And we want you to help us to help you. And that is the bottom line. And so we are here to continue to work with you all. And with that, I will conclude this conversation here. If you have any further question, we will entertain at this point.
You talked about the rivers and everything being in good shape right now. Encouraging news, especially the reservoirs and everything. We all know some of the standard areas around that flood, but are there any potential spots that you'll be setting up barricades ahead of time, or things that people need to be aware of this evening?
So you wanted to add anything there, Mark?
Well, it's really hard to predict. Our county is very diverse in different ways. We got some farmlands, and then we got packed subdivisions on the other side, and different cities. So it's really hard to really gauge where the major rainfall hits. So what we're doing is we have different service centers areas that are stacked, ready to go, and depending upon where the rain falls and how it is, we have different sections of the county that we can send out resources. So we're staging them at county facilities right now, getting ready to go, but we're not focused on one specific area in the county.
What is the main source of intel that you're getting, or what have you, that has you being under a little bit more scrutiny? You seem to be a little bit more urgent earlier in some of your words you were saying.
Well, there's a couple of things. As emergency management, you always got to be prepared. The last thing that I need to do is with my team is not be ready to go with Fort Bend County and all the resources that we have. We've got the resources, the experience level, the people, the staff, the leadership to do the jobs right no matter what comes here. I'm very confident in that. But the other thing too is also have things in place, because let's look at past history of some of our past storms, is that we expected storms to hit 10 inches of rain, and Harvey dumped 23 inches of rain in the first day. You know, those are things, and those are just, I'm just throwing a couple of numbers out there, not very specific, but y'all get the point, is that the expectation of these storms, sometimes they come in here and bounce in and offshore, they pick up more moisture and different things. That's why it's very important about every 3 to 4 hours that we get up-to-dates from the experts telling us what's going on, but we want to be prepared. I want to make sure that I provide the right information to the county judge to make the right decision at the right time, and making sure the last thing that we as Fort Bend County is we preach to the citizens to be ready and have a plan and be prepared. We need to do the same thing, so that's why you hear a little bit more urgency from my office, and my team under the leadership of the judge.
So right now you're seeing the track is more, you said earlier.
So we get a new update in about an hour from the National Weather Service for this region. So I have a better understanding, but about 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock this morning, the report was it was coming a little bit more inland. If we know that yesterday evening into the evening hours, it was more offshore and it was going to hug the shoreline and bring more moisture in and more hit the coastal communities. Now it's coming up. The last report before I walked in here is more Matagorda, coming up Matagorda Bay, coming up towards 59 and heading up 59. So, you know, a matter of 50 to 100 miles either which way, depending upon what the storm is. But if it heads straight up 59, it's going to hit Fort Bend County. And those are the things that we just want to be over prepared than under.
Yeah, and I just wanted to repeat this. You know, we all remember Allison. It was just a tropical storm, and it created the maximum damage for this region. So we don't want to take anything lightly with that. Thank you, each and every one of you, for being here this early, and I appreciate all the good work you're doing. Thank you. Thank you.
Pretty sure, yeah, you'll have like other ones to go to.